But one farmer says, seems to me there was a tea party in Boston that was illegal too.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
We shall seek to establish and maintain a dollar which will not change its purchasing and debt-paying power during the succeeding generation.
As anguished shrieks rose up from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Government credit and government currency are really one and the same thing. A reserve of gold and a small reserve of silver.
So, and I said, well, what if it does happen? And he says, well, price will solve everything. I said, thanks, give me the gold.
Why do central banks hold it? Well, it's a form of reserves. So why don't they hold diamonds? Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Well, some people still think it's money.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Junius Maltby channel. Today it was supposed to be just myself, Mrs. Maltby, and the ANCAT, but Junius happened to amble in, and he will be actually joining me on this video.
Thanks for joining us. Welcome. Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Most boring channel on the YouTube.
So, Junius is going to start off with a little bit of information about the current state of the stocks, and then I will continue on to an article that I found myself. So let's get going into that, Junius. Here, let me get up the slide for you.
And it's another day in the red. Looks like the Dow dropped 800 points on, of course, quote, mounting concerns over the coronavirus and global economic recovery. At this point, the low was 900 earlier, but of course, they're still trading. So live right now as I look at it, away from this slide where it says the low was 900 points, we're sitting about down 823, about 3% today. The S&P is down about 98.38, about 2.9%. The NASDAQ's down 2.93%, down 335. And of course, they're blaming all of this on mounting concerns over the plague and the global economic recovery or lack of. Let's take a quick look over at metals, how they're doing. And I'm sure you can guess the metals are down as usual, with Wall Street doing a big sell-off. Of course, we've covered this in the past, why this happens. And metals tend to be sold off by these major institutions and banks because it's the only thing they hold of value. They have to cover their losses, cover their margins, so they dump their metal positions. And that's why we're seeing significant drops in all of the metals. The biggest drops being the ones tied more to the industrial side of things. And it makes sense. You know, you look at palladium down 4.5%. That's a pretty big drop, 4.5%, $106 for palladium. Platinum doing a little bit better, down 1.5%. But we've got silver down 4.46%, falling $1, almost $1.10 today. It's down $1.09 right now, $1.095. Gold falling $30. Sounds like a lot. However, that's translated into about 1.6%. And sitting here live now, gold's down about $31.20, 1.63%, sitting at $1880.70. So gold at $1,880, almost $20 shy of the 1900 mark for gold. So again, economic turmoil, everything bleeding red. And of course, we're coming into the election, a lot of uncertainty. And then there's, of course, the plague, which they tend to blame everything on.
The plague. Alrighty. Is that all you had to say about that, Junius?
That's it for metals and the markets.
Okay, so let's get into another topic here involving Germany.
Nations repatriating gold has been a topic we've covered since the birth of this channel, and we've often looked at and covered the German situation. As you know, we've done several videos over the last several years where it covered Germany repatriating its gold back to its homeland. And this morning, Mrs. Maltby was perusing the news as I was having coffee and breakfast, and she began discussing these recent headlines and articles surrounding the topic of Germany repatriating more gold from New York, especially if Trump wins the election. So Mrs. Maltby is going to present this article here. A lot of interesting information and numbers when it comes to Germany, its gold, the United States, and the backdrop of the world economy.
All right, so I'm going to start off with this article, and then I'll be following it up with a similar article, albeit that article is coming from another source. It's a foreign source, and it has kind of a different viewpoint, different take, and other data, information, and numbers. So I thought it would be important to get both of these articles in, different viewpoints and perspectives. And of course, we always encourage our viewers to make their own decisions, make their own choices about what they hear, see, or read. It's the same thing that we do. Remember, we are not the ones who write the articles. We are reporting on them and providing our own input on the articles as we read them. So Junius is going to chime in here if he feels he has something to say. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading this article here. So let's start off with this article titled, "Will Germany Repatriate Its Gold from New York if Trump Wins the Election?" During the Trump administration, political ties between the U.S. and Germany have critically deteriorated. Recently, the U.S. imposed sanctions on companies working on Nord Stream 2 and announced to withdraw 12,000 troops from Germany. In 2013, when Germany repatriated gold from the U.S., the Germans communicated, "We will not be threatened."
Pause. Interjection. No, first, it's already coming off like an anti-Trump hit piece from the media.
Absolutely.
That's understandable. Of course, blame Trump for the failures of German relationships, and everything's his fault. Typically, Orange Man bad. This is a good Orange Man bad.
Although this has been happening since the 1970s, with evidence that will be presented long before Trump was involved.
And I'm not sure if the author of this article understands that
He's quite
Germany
biased.
was repatriating gold under previous administrations.
Absolutely.
And much more so. I don't think it's to blame on any particular president or whoever's in power in the United States. I think what it comes down to is Germany sees the world economy struggling, and they want to hold their gold. It's not a bad concept. It's not even a foreign concept. It's reality. It's rational. It's what any nation should and would want to do. If I was a country, I would want to hold my gold. I wouldn't want it 2,000, 3,000 or so miles away across an ocean in the vault of another nation, especially one like the United States that's proven to be somewhat unstable, irrational. You know, we have people like Pelosi at the helm. We might have Harris as a VP. Who knows? And this, to blame it on Orange Man is, to me, obvious bias when it comes to what the author's doing, because I think that there's policies in place in the minds of those like Biden, Harris, and such, to where if their administration were to take over, I think it would be equally or more so encouraging for Germany to want to repatriate its gold. I don't think either administration has an effect on it. I think what it comes down to is Germany wants their gold back, and this author's using it as an opportunity to kind of do a hit piece on Orange Man. That aside, on the troop movement thing, I don't know the exact number. I remember Ron Paul used to quote it quite frequently that America has like 170 bases or 150 bases in 70 different countries. I think the United States needs to shut down every single base on the planet outside of this country and bring all of the troops home. I mean, World War II ended in 1945. I don't know what the hell we're doing with troops in Germany still. Let Germany, let the European Union defend itself, let them have their own troops. We have no business or reason to spend tax dollars over there. It's not our job to support their economy with troops living in their nation.
Well, that gets
Bring
into
them home.
the
Done.
military complex there, and,
Yeah.
and that's quite an extensive side topic. So I'd like to stick to the gold on here. And of course, there's a lot of varying and different opinions on troop support and troops in general.
Close the bases.
Let's take a look here. And by the way, I did scroll through this article prior to putting it in here, and I can say it is slanted. And that's why I wanted to read the other piece that has maybe a different perspective, and that's why I included the disclaimer. Take the information for what it is, and I didn't write the article. But I thought it was important that we see on this channel what's being reported. What's the opinion being reported by reporters from other parts of the world? What do they think about what's going on over here right now? So let's go on to the next part of the article here. Gold is a political metal. Whoever has the gold makes the rules, as the saying goes. Because gold serves as the backstop of the international financial system, the global distribution of gold influences the balance of power. This is true for gold ownership, but it also applies to storage locations. The more of its gold reserves Germany stores at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the more leverage the U.S. has over Germany. It wouldn't be the first time the U.S. freezes gold assets in New York to pressure foreign nations. Since the launch of the euro system, Germany has been repatriating gold. Currently, Germany has 1,698 tons, or 50%, stored on its own soil, and 1,236 tons, 37%, stored in the U.S., and 432 tons, or 13%, in the U.K. Officially, Germany has the second largest gold reserves in the world at 3,366 tons.
And they also hold 91 tons in France. And it's also important, you might cover this later, but all of Germany's reserves, because a lot of people like to place World War II blame on Germany's wealth or their gold holdings. But according to official numbers, the gold that Germany has accumulated and sits on is post-World War II accumulation. So their official gold reserves have been accumulated between 1951 and 1968. And that's not, again, this isn't gold that they took from other nations during the course of World War II. I think that's important to note.
All right, and moving on here.
Here's a look at storage locations, official gold reserves for Germany. You can see they're color coordinated there. And the left side of the graph or the chart shows you the metric tons. And then below you see dates. Those are the dates, what the numbers were at that given time. The U.S. Fed there is in, I believe it's the blue, and that it peaked around 1965, 66, it looks like, according to the chart. But that's their total gold reserves, again, broken down into how much they have stored elsewhere. And you can see the France there, Canada, Switzerland, the UK, and all of that. What do we have? The Bundesbank transfers 232 tons to the European Central Bank. That was during the founding of the euro. There should be a big dip in there with the United States. Yeah, you can see it towards the end, right around 2012, I believe it is on there, 2013. And that's when we covered the repatriating of the gold that took place under the Obama administration.
Yeah.
So there was gold shipments, and Germany did repatriate gold back then from the United States as well. And if you look at their France holdings, they also dipped about the same time as the United States back there around 2012, because during that news cycle, Germany was repatriating gold from both nations. And that's really at the tail end of the last economic crisis, when there was a lot going on in the world economy. And Germany said, hey, we want our gold back, and they took it from France and the United States.
We have another kitty that just joined us, Miss Raven Poe here, along with the ANCAT. Alrighty, continuing on with the article. And obviously, the author of this is referring to a previous article that he wrote. I don't know what that article was, but that's what that means here. So, in a previous article, we discussed how the last remnants of the gold standard were dissolved in 1971. And he references chapter The Rise and Fall of Bretton Woods. During Bretton Woods, the U.S. dollar was the world reserve currency, backed by gold at a fixed parity of $35 per troy ounce. All other countries were pegged to the dollar.
All of the currencies were pegged to the dollar.
I don't have my glasses, but that is quite an important word change.
It's kind of true.
There.
All of the countries, their currencies were pegged to the dollar. And most viewers on this channel should be quite familiar with Bretton Woods, being that it's referenced almost every video, and it's a major, major part of world economic history, but it's often overlooked. But I think most people here are familiar with it. It's always good to revisit it, and it seems like every gold article that discusses gold repatriation or currencies is going to somehow find a way, they have to mention Bretton Woods because it's so pivotal.
My apologies for that. If you knew how bad my eyes were.
She's blind. She's a blind woman.
In 1959, the U.S. had printed and exported more dollars than it had gold backing them. Initially, European allies provided support to defend the gold-dollar parity in the free market through the London Gold Pool and stabilize the international monetary system. There was considerable critique of U.S. monetary policy, though, and surplus countries, such as Germany, blamed the U.S. for exporting inflation. As the U.S. kept exporting dollars through a balance of payments deficit, Germany had to print Deutschmarks to maintain their peg to the dollar. Eventually, the London Gold Pool collapsed in 1968, and the U.S. suspended dollar convertibility in 1971. Bretton Woods came to an end.
Incredible how back then, I mean, you wonder what kind of conversations are taking place today when it talks about the U.S. exporting inflation. Because again, all these countries having to peg their currencies to the dollar, but then here you have today the U.S. mass printing, this quantitative easing infinity. You've seen the numbers, we've discussed the numbers, the billions upon trillions of dollars that are being injected into the money supply, the expansion of M2, and the circulation of dollars. I'm sure that the same conversations have to be taking place. The same concerns are taking place. And that could be one of the main motivating factors why Germany wants its gold back. Why would you want... I mean, essentially the U.S. is like this debtor crackhead stumbling around a ghetto.
It's a Hunter Biden.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? This is perfect. Hunter Biden is not only, he's a living allegory for what the United States is. He's a degenerate crackhead who forgets his laptop and leaves it places. Unreliable. He's probably the guy in the family that's always asking for a loan or a handout. All of his money is by ill-gotten means, similar to the United States. It's not the type of person that you loan money to expecting to see payment of, or that you can trust with your valuables. Essentially, if you give this person valuables, they're going to pawn them to buy crack, more crack. So very good. I'm glad you brought that up, Mrs. Maltby, because it's a perfect analogy for why Germany would want its gold back, because we are that stumbling crackhead wandering about a ghetto, losing our possessions and begging for money.
Indeed. Let's continue here. From our archive, the Blessing Letter. All of Germany's official gold reserves have been accumulated in between 1951 and 1968, but Germany hardly ever redeemed dollars for gold at the U.S. Treasury. Most of its gold was acquired through trade with nations other than the U.S. Although Germany had the largest dollar holdings at the time, it didn't redeem them because the U.S. protected Germany from the Soviets, a service that came with conditions. In 1967, the president of the German Central Bank, is it Bundesbank?
The Bundesbank of Germany.
We need Rolf Steiner for this, huh? All right, so the president of the German Central Bank was Karl Blessing. The chairman of the American Central Bank, or Federal Reserve, was William Martin. In a letter written by Blessing on March 30th, 1967, he reaffirmed Martin that Germany wouldn't redeem dollars for gold at the Treasury. And on the next slide, we will actually see that portion from the Blessing letter. So here's a little recap of what the letter says, actually, word by word, and then there's a picture of the actual letter. You can see in German there that it's noted as being in the historical archives. So here's what the letter says, written by Karl Blessing. By refraining from dollar conversions into gold from the United States Treasury, the Bundesbank has intended to contribute to international monetary cooperation and to avoid any disturbing effects on the foreign exchange and gold markets. You may be assured that also in the future, the Bundesbank intends to continue this policy and to play its full part in contributing to international monetary cooperation. Sincerely yours, Karl Blessing.
And I believe that international monetary cooperation is breaking down. At this point, I think it's getting to the point where it's going to be every nation for itself. and in their attempts to survive this potential Great Reset, whatever it may be, whatever the future might hold. I don't think Germany is going to make any further sacrifices, economically speaking, on behalf of the United States. And they don't have to. It's not incumbent upon them to do so. The Cold War is over. There is not this giant Russian looming threat over them. There's other... We're not going to see conventional ground wars of Russian troops pouring over the wall like we used to hear about or think might occur during the height of the Cold War. You're not going to see tanks pushing from East Germany into West Germany again. I mean, the country's it's been reunited. It's one of the most industrial, productive, successful economies in the world. It's the anchor point of economic success for the euro. They essentially carry the entire European Union. I mean, imagine being Germany, taxed, and then they're the ones that produce everything. And then you have little countries like Greece who tried to be part of the euro. And you, I mean, again, as an Italian, it's hard for me to say you have nations like Italy, and of course they're not the worst when it comes to the world economy, but they're nothing when it comes to the powerhouse that is Germany. I mean, Germany really does carry the euro and the European Union, and they should be their own economy. I'm sure there's people in Germany that want that, the independence from the Eurozone, and to separate out, similar to what the UK was trying to do with Brexit. And I think the days of the EU are numbered. It should fracture up, and there should be everyone should have their own economies in that zone, because it's unfair to what takes place with Germany.
And here's an example. I mean, the blessing letter in itself, you can blame Trump all you want, but clearly this is an attitude that Germany has had for decades. And I would not beg to differ that other countries have thought this or felt certain similarities in their thought process when it comes to all of this. So again, the author may be slanted, but it's just evidence that this is not a Trump thing.
Well, if Germany's truly concerned, like they said back in the day, about the U.S. exporting inflation, inflating dollars, I mean, let's just cut to the chase here and speak some truth. The economic policies that are professed by the Biden-Harris campaign and their radical socialism that they want to implement, the ultra-leftist, progressive, Marxist ideologies that they hold, free college, government healthcare, all of the things that they talk about are going to involve mass printing of unbacked fiat dollars. So they're going to further devalue and debase the U.S. dollar. These are people that believe in modern monetary theory, MMT. They have the support of those like Bernie and AOC. So if Germany truly was worried about mass printing of dollars or the exportation of inflation, they would be significantly concerned and worried about the Biden-Harris administration. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe Germany really is asking for their gold now because they're concerned of a potential victory of these radical socialist policies.
Yeah,
that could be I think that's a factor.
And that's why I mentioned everybody can take what they want from this, and just it's important to see through the biases and some of the information here. A lot of what I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, in particular surrounding this president, has been quite a lot of blame shift, but people don't take a look at the history of things, and that was my point of just remaining educated and not ignorant. Let's move on to the next piece here. On the webpage titled From Our Archive, The Blessing Letter, which was launched by the German Central Bank in 2013, just before it repatriated 300 tons of gold from New York, the Bundesbank cites an interview with Blessing from 1971. In the interview, Blessing calls himself into question regarding earlier concessions. I state to you now, 1971, that I feel myself to be personally culpable in this matter. I should have been more rigorous with regard to the U.S. The dollars that we were accumulating should simply have been rigorously converted into gold. The Bundesbank adds on its website, he, or Blessing, explained that at the time, fears of foreign policy implications, which would have led to the withdrawal of American troops from Germany, had been one of the factors that led him to give in to U.S. demands. Because the U.S. threatened Blessing to withdraw American troops, he was forced to promise not to redeem dollars for gold. Naturally, the U.S. wanted to have as few dollars redeemed as possible to sustain the dollar hegemony.
Yeah. Very interesting. I've never heard of the Blessing Letter, which is surprising. I mean, I've covered the Bretton Woods in the past and Germany's repatriating of gold, and it never really has come up in any of the articles or materials I've perused regarding the situation. The whole situation, though, with the troops over there, again, that's an entirely other video itself. But the 300 tons, back to that, we need to get back to that, because again, that took place when Trump was not even on the radar of politics. Again, that was during the Obama years. And I never saw a hit piece or an article blaming Obama and his policies and the United States for any of the reasons why Germany wanted its gold back. So again, I just have to revisit that it's very interesting to me, going into this election, how an article, an author, and the media can slant a little bit and interpret Germany wanting to repatriate gold as conclusion, orange man bad. It just goes to show you that Trump derangement syndrome and the insanity that has found itself almost like a tumor embedded into the brain of the left is uncurable. These people are truly insane, and they will interpret anything, whether it be a hurricane or a virus or any natural phenomenon. I would assume that if Krakatoa suddenly erupted and caused catastrophic damage in Polynesia, somehow it could be related to Trump didn't do enough to prevent magma and the movement of plate tectonics. It's one of those things that...
Well, it's true. He should have been there addressing that.
Should have addressed it. And of course, plate tectonics, I'm sure, is now tied somehow to climate change.
It is.
Okay. Even though the world used to be as fluctuating.
That's a joke, by the way.
I need to make my own climate change video.
We need to make a climate change video, actually.
Yeah,
I found a really good read on that. We need
to.
Okay.
The climate change mythology needs to be addressed.
It does.
Continue.
Yeah. Please excuse any background noises as the ANCAT is acting wild. Get out. Leave.
Naughty kitty.
We'll be feeding her in a bit here. All right. More information is in the full interview with Blessing, 1971. And
Der Spiegel.
Looks like it's probably a link here to click on that full interview, and you can refer to that when we put the link to this article in the description. So here we've got what looks like the interview. So we start with Blessing. Then came the story of the troops. Question from the interviewer. You mean the Americans' threat? If you don't support the dollar, we will withdraw the troops from Germany? And Blessing replies, the threat was always in the background. Former U.S. High Commissioner McCloy once visited the German government and said, look, we've now had a Senate decision. There is soon a majority that we will withdraw our boys. We have to do something. So he called me at home on a Sunday afternoon at 3:30 and said, I have to fly back tonight. Can't we see each other? And I said to him, my dear McCloy, your situation is clear. This is a balance of payments problem for you, nothing more. You have seen that we are sensible and do not convert our dollars into gold. I am even willing to give you that in writing for a certain time. Unfortunately, the letter that I wrote back then is still valid today.
Big mistake on Germany's part.
Then it goes on to the article here, subtitle, The Breakup. From day one Trump took office, he has criticized other NATO members for not spending enough on defense, which impaired political ties with European allies. The situation escalated in 2019 when Trump imposed sanctions on firms working with Russia's state-owned gas company, Gazprom, to finish the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Germany. Trump wants to block Russia supplying gas to Europe and demands the EU to buy American gas. Last July, the U.S. confirmed it would withdraw 12,000 troops from Germany. Germans are no fan of Trump. Again, this is subjective to whoever's reading this, but per the author here, Germans are no fan of Trump because he speaks for the entire nation of Germany, I suppose. The annual The Fears of the Germans survey, performed by R&V Versicherung, again, Rolf Steiner needed, shows that in 2020, the people in Germany fear nothing more than Trump's foreign policy. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Orange Man bad. Again, the oil situation, EU, there is so much more about that topic than what's being covered here. And of course, they're trying to blame all of it on Trump forcing Europe to buy U.S. oil and gas, which I do not agree with. And I believe that Europe is setting up its own oil supplies through that Gazprom. And again, that's a relationship between Europe and Russia.
I like that you said that. It kind of came out as relationship.
Relationship, yeah. That's what it is. And then you've got the entire Ukraine situation. But we mentioned the crackhead Biden earlier. And of course, Ukrainian gas and oil companies. There's a lot that goes into that. And there's a lot of U.S. influence over there. It's also a funding mechanism for a lot of political manipulation. We're not going to crack into that Pandora's box today. I believe a lot of it's held in the laptop that the crackhead lost. Yeah. But we'll keep going.
And just a reminder for maybe new listeners, we're not pro any party or any politician. We are pro-truth, and we don't appreciate, just lies or slandering or just information that is not accurate or not true. And that's just been one of the reasons why maybe at times it comes across as there's great defense towards Trump, but it's not necessarily that. It's just pointing out the complete lunacy of the left.
He and I just happen to share some of the same enemies.
Yeah, that would be
I absolutely despise and hate the radical left.
Yeah. And it really extends to just basically that. We hate all politicians equally in this household. So let's move on to the next piece of the article. Here we go. If you know how statistics work and how surveys work and how polls work, you should know the outliers, the skews. You should know all of that about this. You're all very intelligent.
Well, 86% of all statistics, I don't know if you know this, but 86% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
Well, I had a statistics professor actually tell us the first day of class that his class is quite honestly the most unreliable class that we will probably take in our college career. And mentioned to us that statistics are never to be used as a source of complete trust. And so anyway, again, here's another subjective viewpoint from the author here. Looks like they did a study, and it says here, I assume that after the Second World War, West Germany mostly feared the Russians, but the tables have turned. In a survey by YouGov from 2019, it appears Germans see Trump as the greatest threat to world peace and not Putin. And again, we have no idea how many people were surveyed, when they were surveyed, their background, their demographics. It's all just, I think you guys are intelligent enough to know what I'm getting at with that. Whenever there is a survey or a stats placed on here, and ANCAT is misbehaving. So Junius, why don't you take care of this?
So this is, the greatest threat to world peace. They have brought up various world leaders, and they show Trump as being feared. And that's interesting because if you paid any attention to recent news, especially surrounding the Middle East peace deals that have taken place and have not gotten a lot of attention, and just look at the track record in the last 4 years, there hasn't been a lot of global conflict. He's been involved in a lot of bombings or attacks or drone work. There has been some small skirmishes and firefights here and there. But remember, Obama, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, was known as the drone president. Here's a guy who was bombing, destroying, and killing, and delimbing children in Yemen and throughout the Middle East. He was involved in myriad global conflicts, troop surges, and war, and really did, in my opinion, almost nothing towards world peace. And whereas Trump has avoided a lot of situations that could have gone hot, he's done more with peace talks and engaging in some of these world leaders to de-escalate situations and try to prevent war. But I think that's a reason why the elite, the deep state, A lot of those who promote a new world order don't like him is because he's not playing ball. They want conflict. They want global war. The military-industrial complex needs a candidate that will see to it that they can use their toys and spend taxpayer money for warfare.
You know, I read an interesting article. I don't know if I could find it again. I probably won't put it on this channel because we want to focus on the gold here. But I did read an interesting piece that they another potential reason for the pandemic to cause chaos was virtually because they just couldn't trigger him. They couldn't trigger him into conflict with other nations, and so they just had to. Again, it's an opinion article, but you could see how that potentially might be one of the reasons why Corona, the pandemic, was also forced upon us. I mean, they had a kind of a difficult time in getting him to play ball, as you said, and they needed a conflict. They needed a reason for this election season. They needed a reason to crash the economy.
Without straying too much off topic, because again, we're trying to talk about Germany repatriating gold and all of this stuff, and obviously it introduced the discussion about Trump. It's in the article, so we have to address it. I just have to close with on the final thought on this is, as an American, as someone who lives far away from Germany, I've never been to Germany. I don't really care what their opinion is of who leads this country or who's here and how we do things. Not my problem. I don't care. Germany's its own nation. You know, figure your own stuff out. Get your own oil deals. If we want to remove our troops and not give you welfare money because we have troops in your country anymore, so be it. It's not our job to support you economically. It's not our job as Americans to support your energy sources or anything like that. It's not even our job to create an umbrella of defense for you from any threats. I don't care if somehow, at some point, Sweden becomes a world superpower threat led by a dictator. Never going to happen, but let's pretend that it did. I don't care what threat they pose to Germany. I don't care if France invades Germany and seeks reparations and vengeance for things that took place in World War II. I don't care about Germany. I don't care about anything that happens to Germany economically, geopolitically, you name it. It's not my problem. It's far away from me. I'm just not that much in tune with what takes place in Europe. And again, if that offends somebody, so be it. I'm not a global citizen. I'm not even in my own mind an American citizen. I live in a particular region, and I believe in decentralization to that extent. I'm not a global citizen or a member of the global community, and I don't care about those nations or what takes place in them. So be it. I will do what I can here locally. That's it. And if they don't like who we choose to lead this country or how we choose to conduct business, that's not my problem. I don't like your leadership. I don't like Angela Merkel at all. I think she's a short, fat, globalist hobbit. And that's just the way that is. And how she keeps coming to power is beyond me. I guess I think Germany's been completely emasculated. They carry so much guilt post-World War II that they're afraid to kind of assert themselves, to assume a national identity, to be proud of their roots, to be proud of being German again. And so what they do is they now just import migrants and immigrants from various other nations, water down their culture, destroy their language and traditions, destroy their values.
They need to take lessons from their neighbors in Poland next door.
Exactly.
On how to get their identity
Germany's
back.
lost. Europe's lost. It's been destroyed.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Before ANCAT goes nuts, let's finish up this article. And we reach our conclusion of this particular article. During the hostage crisis, 1979, the U.S. blocked Iran's gold account in New York. Germany wants to prevent such a scenario. Storing gold with allies provides safety, but when political ties weaken, storing gold abroad becomes a hazard. When Germany started repatriating 300 tons from New York in 2013 and published the blessing letter on the Bundesbank website, it communicated it will not be threatened again. Why else dust off the blessing letter and his interview with Der Spiegel just before repatriating gold? Germany might be waiting for the elections in the U.S. because Biden can change America's foreign policy. If Trump wins and transatlantic alliances further deteriorate, I wouldn't be surprised if Germany brings more gold home. The consequences will be significant. 1. If Germany repatriates because of a political dispute, this can incentivize other countries to repatriate from New York as well, causing a run on the Fed. Second, Germany would emphasize the importance of gold, which hurts the credibility of the dollar. Now let's take a quick look at just certain pieces from this article. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to show you what Junius and I here thought was relevant to this video and kind of tie it all together and close this out. So this is a section here from the Financial Times titled, How Germany Got Its Gold Back. So this piece is a little bit more historical. It's not so much politics or Trump blaming here. Let's take a look here. It starts off speaking about someone here named Karl Ludwig Thiel. When he was 11, his aunt gave him a 21-karat gold coin as a gift. It was an incredible feeling to own it. I still have it now and can picture it. There is an image of Pope John the 23rd on one side, and on the reverse an image of the Holy Ghost floating above the bishops. In the 5 decades since receiving that coin, Mr. Thiel, of course Junius is looking up the coin, I bet.
Right,
I just saw you grab your phone. Tall and forthright with a liveliness in his face when the subject switches to bullion, has risen high in Germany's state bureaucracy. He served 20 years in Parliament before making the switch from Berlin to Frankfurt to sit on the executive board of the Bundesbank, the country's central bank, and also custodian of its gold. So why is this relevant? Why is this guy relevant? Well, I suppose the article will go into that here in a moment. Over the past 5 years, he has masterminded the transportation of almost 54,000 gold bars, each with a value of just under $510,000, to Frankfurt, or Germany's financial capital, moving 27 billion, in today's prices, dollars, from the vaults of the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Banque de France. The last bars arrived at the Bundesbank headquarters, a few kilometers north of Frankfurt's city center in August. But how Germany's gold came to be abroad is a story that goes back to the Second World War and beyond. And here looks like there's an image of him, and it states, Germany has a stronger relationship with gold than most nations. The country's experience with hyperinflation between 1919 and 1923 during the years of the Weimar Republic is ingrained in the national consciousness. Gold, above all, stands for stability.
Yeah, I don't know how any German could not think about Weimar and remember what that did to their nation, what it did to their people. And, that's hyperinflation at a very personal level for them because it destroyed them and it ravaged their country. So, yes, it would make sense that the German people look at gold and view it in a little bit different light than your average stupid American who has never truly experienced hyperinflation. And because of that, as you are aware of the normalcy bias, most Americans, if they've never experienced something, they believe that it's impossible to occur. So that's why, in today's day, most Americans have no concept of the risk of hyperinflation, what it would mean if it occurred, how they would navigate those troubled waters. And they really don't prepare for it in any way or view gold in that light.
Absolutely. So let's move on here. I already see some German words popping out to me on this page, so apologies in advance to my attempt at those words. During the Second World War, Nazi Germany looted gold from central banks across Europe. The Reichsbank stored more than 3,700 kilograms, or 4.1 tons, of this stolen gold through the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland. By the time the Allies, through the Tripartite Commission for the Restitution of Monetary Gold, recovered it in 1948, Germany's state coffers were bare. It was during the Wirtschaftswunder, whatever. I apologize.
The economic miracle.
The economic miracle of the 1950s and 1960s, as it apparently was, that West Germany began to stockpile large amounts of gold. The country's export surpluses meant businesses were flush with dollars, which were swapped at the central bank. Initially, the Bank Deutscher Länder, Then, from 1957, its successor, the Bundesbank, in return for Deutschmarks. Under the Bretton Woods system of fixed exchange rates that then underpinned global finance, the Bundesbank could use the dollars to purchase gold at the rate of $35 an ounce, storing most of its holdings in the New York Fed's underground stores on Liberty Street. In 2012, just before the move began, just over 1,500 tons of German gold was stored there. Frankfurt was not much more than 100 kilometers from the border with Soviet-controlled East Germany, so with the threat of Russian invasion, West Germany kept bullion built up before the collapse of Bretton Woods in the early 1970s abroad. During the Cold War, the threat came from the East, so it made sense to store it further west, in Paris, London, or New York, says Mr. Thiel. After the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, that rationale disappeared. And Junius's fantasies of what's that movie you really like, Red Dawn?
Yeah.
Did not come to fruition.
I know. I was a little boy waiting for the Russians to invade. Nowadays, though, it's different for me. If Russian troops started parachuting into America, I might go out and greet them, ask them if they need
Let's move on with the article.
some hot tea.
Let's move on with the article. More controversial was a public campaign spearheaded by Peter Boehringer, a former asset manager who earlier this year became a member of parliament representing the Eurosceptic Alternative for Germany, or the AfD party. Initially, we weren't taken seriously. We wrote to the Bundesbank, but we got standardized, worthless answers. We didn't get any answers, so we had to go public, Mr. Boehringer says. We had attention from online media, then the international media. We are the owners. We're talking about 100 billion euros of public assets. Mr. Boehringer believes that Germany needs its gold back for more than symbolic reasons. The European Central Bank's aggressive response to the global financial crisis has, he says, made cash worthless. People are always interested in gold, but we live in a time when central banks are running amok. In 1971, all currencies were linked to gold. That's no longer the case, and the behavior of central banks is ridiculous. More and more people can see that. The Bundesbank denies that Mr. Boehringer's campaign spurred its decision to bring the gold home. It also denies accusations by gold bugs, or as we know, those bullish on gold as a commodity, that the German gold has disappeared from the New York Fed's vaults. Mr. Thiel says he has seen it twice, in 2012 and 2014, he says. It is there, and it was never a problem to see it or have it transported to Germany.
The question is, sometimes there's speculation that gold bars held in these vaults. I know this is venturing into the conspiracy realm, but it has been found that some bars were indeed fake. There have been fake delivery bars discovered, which were basically tungsten bars coated or plated in gold. And I believe if you look at the news and you dig a little deeper, many of the gold bars that Germany repatriated back in the earlier years that we saw earlier, 2012 and 13, they melted them down and had them reformed into new other gold bars. I don't think they did that just for the declared reason of uniformity, consistency, making sure the assaying of all of them were the same purity and the same weight to make them more modern bars. I do think there was some suspicion on their part that perhaps some of the bars were indeed fake. And you can look that up if you're curious. But continue on.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't we do a video earlier this year about the fake gold in China?
Yes, there were, yeah.
It was a picture or a video, right, of all the gold bars on those little flimsy shelves?
Yes.
Right. All right, let's move on here. Yet when markets became choppy or heads of state turned warmongers, bullion lures back investors. During the most recent global financial crisis, the price rose from around $650 an ounce in the spring of 2007 to a peak of more than $1,800 in summer 2011. Other central banks have reacted to unrest by storing gold abroad too, although their methods of transportation have, in many instances, created considerable risk. During the first week of July 1940, the Bank of England had gold worth £200 million, or $18 billion in today's prices, according to the World Gold Council, on liners in transit over the Atlantic. If any of those ships had sunk, the bank would not have received a penny in return for the loss of almost 41,000 bars, because the shipments were irreplaceable and thus uninsurable.
And real quick, just some headlines from in the past several years. Exclusive. Fake branded bars slip dirty gold into world markets. That was from Reuters. Are there gold bars filled with tungsten at major banks? This is from Global Bullion Suppliers. Gold industry shaken as 83 tons of fake gold bars were used to secure $2 billion in loans. If you remember that story, that came out back in, I believe it was the summer of 2020. Gold-plated tungsten in a Russian bank, ultrasound gold and silver testing. And again, it's no mystery, and it's that there are fake gold bars out there. And I think Germany wanted to ensure that not only were their bars real, they wanted to hold them themselves, and they wanted that assurance to be able to control their own gold supply in case they had to do a reset of the economy, if they had to exit the euro, issue their own currency, and manage their own future.
I think it would be complete lunacy to not believe that there are fake gold bars in any of these.
Yeah, absolutely there are. It'd be very easy to slip some in. These days, they know the technology for making counterfeit gold.
I mean, down to the weight.
They've gotten pretty good at it,
right,
with tungsten and gold plating techniques. So,
of course. In January 2013, the Bundesbank revealed where its gold was stored and announced the plan to move half of it home. The bank has refused to divulge how the 53,780 bars were transferred, but bullion transportation has definitely moved on from the era of ocean liners. According to the pictures, the walls and shelves of the Bundesbank's vaults are gray, in keeping with the design of the headquarters, a brutalist 13-story concrete slab built long and narrow like a ship. But we are denied access, and the gold will remain out of public view, a decision that Mr. Thiel acknowledges will fuel suspicions about whether half of Germany's gold really has come home. We're the most transparent of all the central banks about our holdings of gold, and there are still more questions. With gold, there are always more questions.
Usually more questions than answers.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of this little broadcast here. Remember, Junius always pins in the top comments there ways for you to get involved with the channel, support the channel, donate to the channel, whatever it may be. We are very thankful for all of you in your support for us. We would not have this without you. Also, you can find this information in the description of the videos. And please remember that our backup channel at this time, until I find another avenue, and no, I will not use BitChute, is found for our backup channel, because YouTube, as we all know, is just a little unpredictable and crazy these days. So I generally post a comment in the chat, and Junius can certainly link my channel in the description. Go ahead and subscribe that. There are no videos on that channel right now, but there will be this week.
If they ever wait, yeah, and then we'll quit on that. If you ever wake up one day and the channel's gone, it disappeared, you can't find it. Similar to what we saw happen to SGT Report. Great channel. You know, they used to promote a lot of our content there as well.
Yeah.
But if this channel's ever canceled because of the cancel culture and the censorship that YouTube likes to practice, it's going to be up to you guys to really raise a voice, contact, email, complain, whatever. It'll take a community effort to, if ever, resurrect or get the channel put back up or put it into place. And we can
certainly assist with that through using my channel in the meantime to still establish communication lines with everyone. But
so until then, subscribe to Mrs. Maltby.
Go give it a follow if you do care to have a plan B if something happens to this site. Also, there might be a little bit more different exclusive content on there. I'm not posting any backup videos on there just yet. I'll be posting my own videos. Some of it will be completely irrelevant, down to cats or even things of myself. But it's just a way to have another place to meet if this channel goes down, and hopefully if it does, we can get it back up. But anyway, have a wonderful day, everyone. Be safe out there, and again, thank you for joining the Junius Maltby channel. So best wishes from Mr. Maltby here, Junius, myself, and the ANCAT.